Hello. Welcome to Whip It Up Wednesday. I'm Lorraine Sish, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in the Baltimore area, and I am from Stamp with Lorraine. You can go to my blog, stampwithlorraine.com, and see a lot of other projects that I've done. Welcome to the YouTube channel, and you can also check me out on Facebook. Just look for Stamp with Lorraine. It's me. So we're going to whip up a card today. My Whip It Up series are ways to show you some very quick and easy cards that you can do in no time flat. A lot of times we are short on times that we allow ourselves to craft. Sometimes we need a card in a quick, hot second. And sometimes we want to make a lot of cards, but keep them simple. So this is for you. Welcome to Whip It Up Wednesday. I'm going to turn the camera around, and then we are going to look at the card, the elements that we need for our card. So we need a card base that is 8.5 by 5.5. We're going to score it at 4 1/4. This is what we call our typical A2 size card. Right, so 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. That's right down the middle. Take your bone folder and make sure you give that a nice sharp crease. Next, you will need 2 pieces that are 5 1/4 by 4. One is going to be a layer on here. The other is going to go inside. Next, you will need a piece. Oh, by the way, this is basic beige for my card base. Very vanilla for the inside. And this is Cajun Craze for my layer. I have another basic beige that's 3 3/4 by 2. That's going to go as another layer. And then I'm using some very, very pretty designer series paper that I have all the pieces here. So excuse me 1 second. We're going to use pieces of, so you can kind of use up your scraps for this. We need 1 3/8 by 3 3/8. And that's because we are going to cut them into 3 pieces, but we want them to be sort of a panoramic. So start out with 1 3/8 tall by 3 3/8 long. And then, like I said, we're going to cut them into thirds, which will be 1 1/8 wide. Okay, does that make sense? So I've already done this on here. Now you need 2 of those. Okay, I should have marked that here. 2 pieces at 1 3/8 by 3 3/8. So let me show you what that's going to look like. I've done this already, and they've gotten out of order. Okay, all right, so they're going to be like that. You can see that they're a panoramic. This was 1 piece, and I cut them into thirds. So I'm going to do that here for you now. I'm going to cut them into 1 1/8 wide. Now the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, paper trimmer, has up to 1.5 inches on the right side of the blade, as well as up to 12 inches on the left. So it makes it easy when you're cutting a small piece like 1 1/8 to hold the bigger side over here and cut up like that. So that's why I'm measuring 1 1/8 on the right hand side, and that's going to go there. I'm going to keep them in the right order. Not that I couldn't figure it out later, but 1 1/8, and then obviously it should match up with 1 1/8 over here, which it does. All right, so we want those to, like I said, sort of be 3 panels of a panoramic. Now, if you really wanted to, you could have even the top row and the bottom row match up as well. I didn't. They're going to be separated. I just happened to cut a 1 1/8 strip all the way across my designer series paper, and then I cut my 3 3/8 inch lengths. Okay, so that's going to go there. And then for the inside, if we want to decorate the inside, we're going to have 3 squares at 1 1/8. So if you, again, want that panoramic look, cut a piece that's 3/8 long, and then we'll cut them into 1/8 squares, 1 1/8 squares rather. All right, so I will do that here. Okay, that's if you want to carry this kind of theme onto the inside panel of your card. I'm going to keep these over because remember, these are shorter. Okay, these are actually square, where these for the front are actually taller than square. See the difference there? Okay, so these are a little shorter. So I'm going to put these aside, and this is going to be for my inside. But you don't even have to do that if you want. Keep it simple, whip it up, do something more simple on the inside, or keep it blank, just leave your message there. Now, I also just cut a focal point out of the designer paper. Very often, you don't have to stamp and color something. I just took this beautiful paper here and cut out, fussy cut with my scissors, just one of these little images here. Now, what's nice about this is you don't have to be totally exact, just sort of go around the outside, and it's going to go on the basic beige. So the background is sort of that beige look to begin with. So that's any piece that's showing over here is not really going to show up on the basic beige. So this is the paper I'm using. This is called Autumn Toile, and this is new in September 2025. If you're watching this now, this is a brand new product, and we have we have I guess there were 6 pages here. Anyway, they're really, oh no, that's the same as that. There are 4 different patterns. I'm so sorry. 4 different patterns in this pack of 12 by 12s. Very rustic, antique-y looking. Again, that toile sort of look. And you have some fox, you have some oak trees, you have some pine trees and pheasants, and you have the pumpkin patch. Great for fall, great for masculine cards. The backgrounds are very pretty as well, or nice subtle contrasts to the front images. So browns, grays, gray granites, and some nice just subtle patterns that are good even on their own. Even if you don't use the fronts, you can end up using those backs pretty easily, I think. All right, so let's put this card together. Lickety split, let's whip it up. We have our, let me take my Post-it notes off of here. Super easy. We have our card base. This is going to be a vertical card. We're going to put the Cajun Craze layer onto the front. Again, that's 5 1/4 by 4. Okay, then our layout here is going to be, this piece is going to be in the middle. These, in order, are going to go across the top. They're going to look like little tiles. And then these are going to go across the bottom. So I like to lay it out first and kind of get my spacing just right. And if you do it correctly, you should have similar spacing around the sides, the bottom, and in between. Okay, so sometimes I like to start with those outside corners first because I can make that spacing the same here and here, and then I could fit the others in as well. So let me just glue those down real quick. Again, it's a good way to use up some of your scraps. These could just be patterns. They don't have to be a panoramic, but I thought since I had this pretty paper, it would be a good way to do it. And to be honest, I am casing the layout of a card that a good friend of mine gave me. One of my team members and friends, Judy, gave me a cute little card that had this layout, and I said, you know, this will be perfect for Whip It Up Wednesday. Oops, a little crooked there. One thing with using liquid glue, you have a little time to reposition if you need to. Okay, I'll do the same on the top. I like doing the corners first, and then the middle can just be centered between them. That way you don't end up being too short on one side or the other. It's okay if you have more space in between these guys rather than it being all too far to the left or too far to the right. Okay, then this is going in the middle. Now, if you're going to do any stamping, do it before you glue it down. Remember, that has to go first, because if you mess up your stamping, then you can always flip it over. And if you mess that up, you can just get another piece of cardstock. So this is your basic beige 2 inches by 3 3/4. And I'm going to use the Amber Autumn stamp set that coordinates with the designer paper. It's part of a suite. Comes also with these beautiful dies. These are awesome. So follow and watch some other projects I do with that at some point. The embellishments that coordinate in this suite are these streaked dots, they're called. They look sort of like wood. They look like polished wood to me. So I wouldn't necessarily call them streaked, but it does have some little swirl kind of things in there. So that, like I said, it looks very woody. So that's an option to use in this suite also. So the Amber Autumn, I'm going to use this sentiment here because it's going to fit with the little image that I die cut out. I'm going to put my sentiment over here in the top right corner, and this is going to be down there. So before I do anything, I am going to stamp that. I'm going to use Early Espresso. And when you're using rubber stamps that have the cling decals on them, you can't see exactly through them. So one thing that I like to do just to test it out is I like to bring in a piece of scrap grid paper, and I like to practice making sure I get this straight. Because maybe when I put the decal on, maybe I might have gotten it a little off, and even though it looks straight on the decal, it might not look straight when I actually stamp it. So sometimes I have to adjust. I'll say, oh, if the right side's just a little bit low, then I'll have to make little adjustments when I actually stamp on there. So let's see, you want to make sure you don't rock and roll and get some ink on the edge. I'm going to put this here like that. Hopefully it's good. Yep, so it is. And I close this up. And that is going to go right in the middle there. Look how sweet that is. So easy to. Okay, and to save some time, I always like to find some little things to do, maybe when you're watching television and you're not thinking about bringing all your materials with you and doing some gluing and whatever. Some little sort of tedious, mindless work might be to take some designer paper and just cut some things out while you're just watching TV. You don't have to think too hard on it. That way you have a bunch of these things. So this is designer paper, and it's not as heavy as a cardstock. It would be nice to pop it up on dimensionals, which I could. And but if you really wanted it to be a little bit more sturdy, before I cut it out, I would have glued this section onto cardstock and then cut out both at the same time, just to make it a little bit more sturdy. But I still think that would look nice with popped up on dimensionals. So I am going to do it, but make sure that I put plenty of them around so that the paper doesn't tear, if you know what I mean. Right, I'm going to make sure I have those there. And then one in the middle there. I'm going to put even some tiny pieces over here. You can use either the mini, well, yeah, I think I will use the mini dimensionals. I was going to use my, the big one, just cut, so you can cut some of the edges if you like, but my sticky scissors are not with me right now. All right, so I'm going to put, even on that little piece there, especially on that little piece, you should make sure you support that. Okay, so look how simple this is, and just how those warm fall colors I don't know, just make you feel cozy all over. And I have plenty of people that I could give this card to. You're simply the best. Well, I guess the best means one person, doesn't it? But anyway, it could be the best in different ways, right? All your friends. I'm going to put that right there. And then that's just a quick, easy card, right? Now, like I said, you could decorate the inside if you like. So let's get our very vanilla, because this paper is more the warm tones of vanilla and beige. So I didn't necessarily want to use white. I use white most of the time, so this is a good chance for me to use the vanilla. And I'm going to bring back those few little squares and just glue them on there quick. Like I said, you could eliminate this part if you wanted to, or you could just stamp a little something in there. Oh no. Okay, here we go. And then this one. So that's the whip it up if you have a little extra time, a few more minutes. Again, way to use up your designer paper. Use your scraps. That just brings those tones and makes the inside just a little less bland. So there we go there. Here is a card that my friend gave me in some brighter colors. And so I took those measurements. This she used punches for, right? So that was easy and stamped there. And then down here, if you notice, she actually did like a little banner cut down there. So you could do that as well. This is Whip It Up. So I left mine plain and I didn't want to take away too much of that delicate pattern there. This is something more bold. So it lends itself more to having a little bit of it cut away. Now, to take this to, again, a little masculine card, or using some of a little bit different paper from that same collection. I did this one in gray granite, vanilla on the inside, using different papers, more the background papers rather than the focal point. And I took the tree that I die cut out of that paper as well. And I took a strip of vanilla, stamped. So grateful to have a friend like you. That was from a different stamp set. That one was from Beautiful Pumpkins, which is also new this September in the Stampin' Up collection. And then we can put it together like this. But then I thought, well, you know what? It doesn't have to be a vertical card. Think outside the box, guys. Think of ways to mix it up. And I said, what if we tried it as a horizontal card? And so then we can do it that way as well. So that's what I'm going to do, just to have something a little different. And I'm going to glue this down. But before I do, I don't want that tree just kind of hanging there in midair, so to speak. So I like to take my blending pen. This is gray granite. This is the light gray granite. You can buy them they come in pairs, light and dark of the same color. And I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of ground, so to speak, to that tree. So it does not look like it's just sort of floating. All right, so just a little smudge, and then we can put that all together. So the sentiment will get glued down completely, and then I could pop the tree up. And again, had I thought of it ahead of time, I would have mounted that on cardstock as well, but I wasn't thinking that far when I was designing the card. Okay, so then that's going to go there, and I think that looks really nice for a masculine card. Let's just get the dimensionals on there. Again, these little bitty ones are great for the small sections there. And you know what? I'm going to have to even cut one of those in half down here, I think, to just put a little tiny piece in that corner. There we go. Okay, so Yeah, definitely put this on cardstock first, guys, if you were to do something that has some intricate pieces to it. All right, there we go. You think that's supported enough? Let's put one more in the middle, just because I don't want anything coming apart. That one's off. And there we go. And we've got our tree. Then let's put some of those little embellishments on the Greek dots from the Autumn 12 collection. Okay, there are two sizes, big and small. I'll put one over here and two up here, like that, and like that. And now it has a nice rustic touch. Okay, so I hope you enjoy those cards. I hope you find time to whip them up. Let me just whip my tools back where they belong. And these are the ones we did today. And here's the one my friend did that I modeled it after. So look to the cards that you already have and see what you can do. Orient them differently. Use different paper, different colors, and you come up with a lot of different looks. So I hope you really like those, and I hope you join me again for another Whip It Up. I'm Lorraine Sish, Stamp It Up demonstrator in the Baltimore area, and I hope you sign up for my blog, stampwithlorraine.com, and you can get my newsletter while you're there. Stay in touch and hope to see you again soon. Bye now. Happy stamping.